Watermelon is one of the perfect fruits to juice in the summer. But how do you find a perfect watermelon? Hi, it's Dan with EUJUICERS.COM, and in this video, I'm going to show you some things you can look for when you're shopping for a watermelon to make sure you get the sweetest one. Also, I'll share some tips on juicing watermelon, and at the end, I'll show you a simple recipe with a couple of ingredients that really complement watermelon nicely. And as always, I will have timestamps. If you want to jump to any certain part of the video, go ahead and look. It'll be locked in the first comment below. So in terms of choosing a watermelon, what you want is a ripe watermelon. It's pretty simple. A ripe watermelon is a sweet watermelon. The problem is a lot of watermelons are picked before they are ripened. And once a watermelon is picked, it stops ripening. It's not like other fruits, but it's basically inert at that point. So there's a few things you can look for to find a watermelon that was picked when it was ripe, actually. And one thing I do want to mention before I get into this, if you look online, you'll see this thing going around. It kind of became a meme, but it's actually, a lot of people believe it. They say you need to choose a female watermelon and not a male watermelon. Female watermelons are rounder, a male watermelon is longer, and this was basically a joke that sort of turned into urban legend. And you can easily debunk it if you look online. A lot of botanists and horticulturists have said there's no such thing. Watermelon's a watermelon. They're not animals. They don't come male and female. Only the flowers on the plant are male and female. So what are you looking for to find a ripe watermelon? Well, the first dead giveaway is the field spot. The field spot is the part of the watermelon that was laying on the dirt, basically, on the field while it was ripening. And how that works is that starts out white, and as it becomes more and more ripe, it turns gradually into kind of a yellow and a gold color. So if you find a watermelon with a white spot, that means it was picked well before it was fully ripened. And something like this, you can see, has a nice yellow, almost golden color going on. So this guy was picked when he was ripened, sun ripened. The next thing you want to look for, you'll find this on some watermelons, not all of them. If there's a little bit of the stem remaining, you want to make sure that's dry and not thick and green, because that naturally dries. It's part of the vine where the fruit attaches to the vine. It naturally dries. That's how the fruit separates from the vine when it's fully ripe. So if you see a watermelon with a thick green stem still attached, that means it was picked well before it was ready. You want to find one that's brown, kind of curly, or dry. These two guys I looked, this is a seedless, this is a seeded watermelon. And this, you can see there's part, and this is just, it's still a bit green, but it's very dry. So that's a good sign that this guy is ripe. Although if you notice, this one doesn't have much of a field spot on it. It has a slight lightening here. But then sometimes these smaller, round, these seedless guys, some farms, they'll actually rotate them so they don't leave a spot. They think it looks better. So that makes it kind of tricky. Another thing to look for is a pattern of lines or webbing on the watermelon. You can see some here, these things here. These, according to growers and according to some state agricultural departments, this indicates a sweeter watermelon. Why is that? Is it just a line where it was drug across the ground? Some people claim these were ant tracks. If you look online, look up ant tracks, they'll say this is where the ants come because they come to the sweetest watermelons. That's not true, but it is insect-based. When this thing was first being formed in the flower, there's just a delicate membrane. All of these lines are scratches from the pollination, from the bees or whatever insects were coming in and out pollinating. And according to farmers, a watermelon that was pollinated more than once, even though it only needs to be pollinated once, makes it a little bit sweeter. So that's something I'll see when I cut this open later for a recipe. A couple of other things you can look for in terms of finding a ripe watermelon. Well, you want to find one with firm flesh, not soft. You want to feel it, make sure if it squeezes in a little bit, then it's too old, definitely. Both of these are firm. You also, if you have a bunch of watermelon in a big bin or something nearby, you can pick them up and compare. You want the one that feels heavier, more solid. That's going to have a higher juice content. And then the old standby is the thumping method. Something I used to do a lot in the stores. You go and you start thumping on the watermelons. Looks like you're auditioning to be a drummer or something. And basically what you're looking for is a deeper resonating sound. If it's a tighter, less deep resonant sound, that means there's less of the flesh and there's a thicker layer of rind in there. One time we actually grew some watermelons in my garden. It's really hard to grow it where we live. And we only had 2 watermelons on the plant. And one day I decided, hey, I think this one might be ready. It was a little smaller than this. And I didn't thumb it, but I picked it, brought it inside, cut it, and inside was, I would say, 2/3 rind with just a little pink core in the middle. My wife came home and wasn't too happy. Said, hey, you just wasted half our watermelon crop. But had I thumped it, that would have been completely solid because it's that thick rind part going all the way through. Something like this has a little deeper sound, a bigger one, of course, has a deeper sound as well. But if it's a tighter sound, that indicates there's a thicker layer of rind and a smaller layer of this pink flesh inside. Notice how thin this rind is here. This guy is really ripe. We actually ate some before filming and it was really sweet. So those are some tips to look for in terms of finding a ripe watermelon. What about juicing watermelon? Well, the nice thing about watermelon is it's really high in liquid content, so it's going to juice well in any juicer. That even goes to high-speed centrifugal juicers, no problem. Watermelon gives a great yield in any machine and a great flavor. Really, the only difference is with a high-speed juicer, just keep in mind you're spinning at about 10,000 RPM. That's mixing in a lot of air. That's going to cause a lot of foam. It's also going to cause the juice to separate pretty quickly, probably within a half hour or so. So if you're using a high-speed juicer, just make sure to drink the juice right away. With a slow-speed juicer like this guy, vertical, horizontal, the juice should store up to 24 hours, even longer in a fridge, even longer if you mix in a little lemon or lime. That kind of slows down any sort of oxidation that could occur. Besides that, juicers will do equally well. Really, the only difference is the size of the feeding tube. How small do you need to cut the watermelon? It doesn't matter much because watermelon juices really fast. You don't have to push it much. It just takes an easy push. In a vertical, you don't even have to push it. Maybe those wide mouth verticals like the Omega MMV or the big mouth Kuvings Evo model, those have a little bit bigger opening, so that might be a little more convenient. But really, generally speaking, all juicers will do fine. So, do you want to just juice watermelon direct or mix with other ingredients? There's a lot of things you can add in. I'm going to cut this guy up and show you some things that complement watermelon really nicely. So I've cut up the watermelon ready to juice here. This is actually about 1/4 of that big watermelon that was sitting out here. One thing I want to point out with juicing watermelon is that was a seeded variety. This guy's seedless, and seeded is fine. There's no need to buy a seedless watermelon when you're juicing. People ask, hey, aren't the seeds going to mess things up? The seeds won't do anything. They'll actually help things flow through the juicer better. You know, the juicer's just going to filter out the seeds just as it filters out the pulp. So the seeded watermelon is ideal for a juicer, and it'll save you a lot of money as well. Other people also ask, can you juice the rind of the watermelon? And if you look online, you'll see yes and no. I say maybe if you've got an organic watermelon and if you cut it up into real small pieces and still make sure you wash it and go very slowly, then sure, you might get a little more juice. You will get a little more juice and some more nutrition. Personally, I don't bother. I cut off just the pink part. If there's a little bit of rind on, no problem, you know. But definitely the outer part, you know, that's where it's been sprayed. There could be chemicals there. You could scrub it all day, but I just feel better just juicing this part. And this recipe itself is just, like I said, about 1/4 of that big watermelon. It would be about the same as a small seedless watermelon. 1/2 of a cucumber. I peeled the cucumber. Again, you don't want to have that skin there unless you really clean it or you know that it's organic. And then 1 lime. And with lime, you can also slice it into small pieces, clean it real well, or as long as it's organic, and juice the rind as well. Just make sure with lime to cut it into very small pieces because that rind is kind of leathery. It can get in there and it can jam or even break a juicer. So again, with things like that, it's always better just to peel them and go. So I'm just going to mix these together, see how it goes. You know, cucumber and watermelon are in the same family. They complement each other. This is really a hydrating recipe, and it's a great one for hot summer days. One thing you could add to this also is mint. Mint goes well with watermelon and cucumber. I just forgot to pick some in my garden on the way to the studio. I'm using the Sauna 727, and this has a variable speed. I'll set it to speed 3. I'm using the fine juicing screen just to get the maximum yield instead of the coarse juicing screen. And I am using this. Normally the Sauna 727 comes with this Bohemian crystal glass. This is an optional 1 liter container just for making bigger recipes. Fits in there nicely. So I'll start it out. There's no particular order. I'll just kind of mix them as I go and see how it goes. Sure to close the juice cap here so it doesn't drip. Made quite a bit of juice. I'm going to just try it out. See if I can pour it without spilling. And like I said, this is really good also with mint. There's a lot of things you can add to watermelon. Different citrus, limes would be good. But let's just see how it goes. Yeah, that's a really good mix. The cucumber adds a lot of like lightness to it, and the lime definitely sort of balances the sweetness, because that was a real sweet watermelon. We're eating some kind of off camera here. And so that's a simple recipe. Again, you can adjust the ratios however you want, but remember, watermelon makes a lot of juice. That was about a third or a fourth of that big watermelon, and it made almost a liter there. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them below. I always read them and I respond to all of them. So otherwise, stay tuned, because we plan to do soon a video of frozen watermelon sorbet, and that should be really interesting. Thanks for watching. I'm Dan with EUJUICERS.COM, and I'll see you next time.